Hi everyone. This walkthrough tutorial will be about creating the 2D vicinity site diagram using Adobe Illustrator. So first of all, what we need to do is go to Google Maps. And here I have Google Maps here, and I've searched for our site, Google Maps. There we are in the middle of Santa Monica, or near the ocean, Santa Monica. And let's first make the browser window fill the screen. That way, when we do a screen capture of this, we'll capture a large number of pixels and have the area of interest be as many pixels as we can get. I want you to zoom out so that you can capture some of the things of note, locations of interest, and landmarks. You should also adjust the zoom here so that it captures some of the things that are of interest to your project that you've identified, some of the influences, some of the forces. Maybe the Santa Monica Mountains are important to your concept, or maybe the Santa Monica Airport is, or proximity to certain freeways. So I've got this zoom about like here that I like. I'm showing Pacific Palisades, I've got the airport, I've got the 405 over here captured. I can easily see the PCH here and the 10 freeway, as well as the major streets, right? And I can also, at this level of zoom, see all of the minor streets, secondary streets, and the blocks immediately around our site. All right, so I'm going to take a screenshot. On the Mac, it's Command-Shift-4, and I'm going to hit space so I get the whole screen. And on Windows, you can use the snip and scan tool, which does basically the same thing. You can save a screenshot. All right, we've got the screenshot done. It's on the desktop, so let's go to the desktop. We'll call this, I'm going to rename it just to be clean about keeping track of my files. So I'll call it 849 Ocean Vicinity. All right, and I'm also going to put it in the folder where I know it needs to go, first of all. So off of my desktop and onto a folder where I want it. I'm going to replace one that I've got there already. Okay, so then we go to Adobe Illustrator. And all we need to do is, on our typical 1920 by 1080 template that we've been using, is drag and drop that right on here. So let's go back to where that image is, and I'm going to grab that file and just drag it and drop it onto Adobe Illustrator, and there it goes. It drops it in. I'm going to use Command minus to zoom out quickly. And again, let's see, on the using the mouse, you can use the Option mouse wheel to zoom in Illustrator. And I will resize, I'll position and resize this image so that it matches the artboard. So I snap to the bottom left corner, and then I'll grab the top right corner here, and I'll hold down Shift as I drag it so it keeps the proportions of the image, and it doesn't distort it. And you can see that as I move the corner, I get a tracking guide telling me that I'm snapping to the edge of the artboard there. Okay, I'll hit Command 0. All right, so this is in place now. I'm going to rename the layer that it's on. I'm going to call it background, and I'm going to lock it. All right, so I've renamed the layer in my layers palette and lock that layer. And then I will create a new layer here so that now we can start drawing on this new layer too. And so I'll call this rename the layer. I double click on that layer name and it comes up with these layer options, and I rename it. I'll call it tracing. So now we're ready to start tracing over some of the important and notable features on the map. Let's hit P to get the pen tool, all right, which is up here in the toolbar, right there, pen tool P. And before I start actually drawing anything, I'm going to set my colors. So right now, there's a fill here. So anything I draw with the pen tool, it's going to fill in between the points with the color, this white color right now. I don't want that, so I don't want any color there. You can see that here. So I'm going to pick none for the fill, right? So I'll have no fill, but I do want a color for the stroke here. So I'll click that to foreground it, and I'll double click it, and I'll bring up a color picker, and we can choose any color we want. We can always change these things. So let's change this to, let's say, a fairly saturated kind of a color here, a green or something. That's going to really stand out as we draw. Or how about an orange? No, the orange is too much. Something like that, lime green. Okay, looks good. All right. So then what we can do is just start tracing. And I'm going to trace the 10 freeway. So I'm going to do it just point by point, not by clicking and dragging. Just click, release, click, release, click, release. All right, so click and just kind of do the rough outline of the 10 freeway. And you'll see here at the curves, I'm just going to click on the midpoint of the curve. Okay, there. And then at the end, I'm going to hit V to go back to my arrow, and which leaves that object selected. It's a little thin, so what we can do is we can go up to our stroke palette. Let me move this out of the way. The stroke palette. If you have the properties palette open, it'll have it there. But if you don't have the properties palette, you can always open up the stroke palette by going Window, Stroke. It'll bring up this palette. It'll bring up this palette where you've got all these controls over the stroke. And I'm going to make it thicker. So we'll give it something like that, maybe even thicker. Something to match the map right now. How about 8 points? Okay, maybe that's good for now. All right, I'm going to put that back. And then let's do PCH. All right, I'm going to hit P again to go back to the pen tool. And start clicking, just kind of trace PCH. And remember, we don't have to be super accurate because this, once to the end, I'll hit V to end it. This is a diagram. It is not, an accurate map. It's meant to be abstract, and abstract the information. Let's do Santa Monica Boulevard. And sort of point to point there. Okay. And how about San Vicente Boulevard? Just trying to get the major streets here. All right, so I've got some major streets here. How about Montana Ave here? Now, Montana Ave is a pretty straight line, and we can use the line tool, which is right here. Line segment tool, which the shortcut key is the backslash. We'll do that backslash. And here we can just click and drag. All right, there's Montana. Okay, it's a different kind of street, so let's make it a different color, a different stroke. Let's make it, maybe how about 6 point, and let's make it, let's change the color here. Use the color picker here. How about like a blue? Whoops. I need to select it and change again to the stroke color here. Maybe something like a bluish color, all right? Hit X to go back and forth between the fill and stroke color selections. Just make sure that the fill is none, all right? And then what I can do is I can also zoom in here. I'm using the holding down Shift and Command or Control Shift on the PC, drawing a box to zoom in here, and we'll do the sort of the curve here, and then we can join these with the pen tool if we want to. Or actually, if we use the pen tool P and I click on the endpoint, it'll automatically join. So what we can do here is I can just, again, abstract it, and then we can use the rounding tool, round corners widget, to fix that. Okay, guys, so I think I discovered a little bug in Illustrator with the web large template that I had been having us use, where the round corner widget, as we see here, wasn't showing up. So if you do see that, create a custom file that's 1920 by 1080 pixels, and copy and paste and place all of your work into that one, because that's what I was seeing. I wasn't able to get this round corner widget, but now we have that, and I can round this corner, and we can even move that sort of into place and give it a little bit more accurate there. All right, so then we should just continue and do sort of all the major streets, and then start getting into some of the minor streets right around our site. All right, and so a lot of these maybe we'll do between 4th Street and California and Ocean Ave. Okay, so we want to create a sense of hierarchy with all of our different streets. So we've got the freeways, we've got some major streets, minor streets. Let's put those in. We've got some straight lines, so I'll just use the line tool, the backslash, and let's change those to another color also. And let's see, how about something like that for now. And of course, we can always change these. Once we're done, we'll reduce the stroke as well, because these are minor streets. And now what I can do is all of these streets on our block here are parallel to this. So what I can do is, with this selected with the black arrow, I can just grab it and option drag. And now I'm creating copies, holding on the option key while dragging them. And then here, I can grab that anchor point with the white selection tool and extend these ones. All right. And I'm not being very accurate, and we will have to clean this up in the end. But we can always do that in Illustrator by moving the points around. Oops, I kind of messed up that one. So there. Okay. Get streets going in the other direction. Some minor streets. Use the line tool here again. We'll click on there and drag. And then what we want to do is we want to make sure that in our hierarchy, where the streets cross, like for example here, that the major street covers over the minor street. And we can do that by isolating these with layers as well, or we can bring things to front or send things to back. So here I'll grab this one again and option drag it. All right, there we go. Okay. So the way to bring something to the foreground is I'll select that. I can right click on it and say arrange, bring to front, and see it puts it on top of everything else. Conversely, you can do send to back. I could select all of these, right click, arrange, send to back, and you see that the endpoints are underneath, covered by the stroke of the major street, and covered by all the other major streets here as well. We can bring all the freeways to the foreground, etc., etc. Now let's do some of the filled-in areas, like the parks and such. So let's zoom in. I'll draw with Command-Shift, using my mouse to draw a box. We can trace the green strip here, and I'll use the pen tool again, just to kind of do an outline, and really just kind of rough here for now. All right, abstract it, and come back to the beginning point, and you see I roll over it, and it says anchor, and it gives me the preview there, meaning that I am going to click on that very first point and close the object there. Okay, and let's give it a fill color, something green that represents open parkland. and perhaps no stroke. So I'll hit X to quickly switch to my stroke color, hit no stroke. Okay, there we go. Let's give it a little preview here and turn off the background layers palette here just to see what things look like. Command 0, zoom to the whole thing. All right, so we're beginning here, and we'll have to put in the beach and the ocean as well. We'll also work on the color palette. Now we'll save some. We'll work on the color palette and be able to save the colors in the swatch palette so we can recall them at any time. Let's turn on the background again, and similar to this filled area, we can do the beach. And if we like that color for the beach and maybe we want to use it, need to use it again someplace, so I'll select that. Make sure that the fill color is in the foreground, and I can go up to the swatches palette now over here and open that up and then create a new swatch, and it'll automatically create a new one of that foreground color that I've got, or the color that's selected. And I can call this, I can even name it, I can call it beach. Okay, and there it is, there's my beach color. So I can reuse that color for either stroke or fill whenever I want. So if you have a lot of objects that you've already drawn that are the same color, and you want to save that color as a swatch, there's just something you need to be careful about. Say, for example, I want all of my green freeways to be save that color. And I click on that and click on this here, and I switch using the X key quickly to go to the stroke color. If I create a new swatch of that, and we'll say this is the, name it, freeway color. Okay. Now, you might see that when I select that, the swatch highlights to indicate that that is the color that's selected. If I select another of the same color, it doesn't select the freeway swatch because it wasn't created I guess in the same way as this color was, I think we can say. So, but what we can do is we can select that one or one of those that is not one of the newly created swatches, and I can go up to select, say same, and say stroke color. Click. And now you see it selected all of the freeways that are that color. It didn't select this one because it's a special swatch now. And now what I can do is make sure that the stroke icon is foregrounded, and tell all of them that I want that swatch to be that stroke now. All right, so now they're all the same, that actual swatch that I saved. What you can also do is, if you don't like this color, now that they're all this color swatch, I can edit that and it'll change them globally. So if I don't like this color, I can come in here and by double clicking the swatch, and maybe I want it actually a little bit more like red. I can adjust it like that, maybe sort of like a burnt orange or something like that, and hit OK. And now all of those that are that swatch have changed. Right, so what I've ended up here with is some really kind of colors that don't go together in a very good palette. And of course, we all want to have, or you should all have, or develop a palette for these diagrams that is cohesive. And works with your brand and your concept. So maybe we do want to go ahead and change, say, the major streets, and maybe we want something a little bit more of an earth tone palette or something. So we can make this maybe a sort of a lighter brown here compared to the freeways and the big streets. All right. And what we can do also is we can collect our custom colors in a new group. And you can see here this folder icon at the bottom of the palette, new color group, and we can say name it so we can always find it. And so we can collect these. It just makes it easier to find and organize them. So when we call it, maybe this is our maybe our brand is and Demoulemeister, and so we'll call this Demoulemeister Vicinity. All right. So now we've got a folder here in the swatches palette, and Meteor Streets is already there, so we can drag the freeways there. We can drag the beach to that folder, and now we're beginning to organize them, and now we know that all of our custom colors are right here under this folder. And there's another way that we can transfer colors or reuse colors from one object to another as well. So let's do this. Let's go and trace this park here, and being green, we want it to look like this park area that we did before. So let's see, I will hold down Shift and Command and Space Bar, draw a box here, and use my pen tool to draw this box. Close it, make sure I'm over the anchor point, click, all right. Go to my black selection arrow, select the whole thing. And you can see that of course, it's not the color that we want. What I can do though is with it selected, that object selected, I can use the eyedropper tool and pick up the color of anything else. The eyedropper tool shortcut is the I key, right? So all I need to do is go over, say, this green park here, click on that, and that turns green. Then with that selected, I'll go back to my black selection tool arrow. Now I can make a swatch off of that as well, so I don't have to keep doing that. Or I know that I've got a green already established for that. So we'll select that, and again, make sure that that fill color is selected, and say new swatch. We'll call this green space. Okay, it puts it under the default list of swatches here. So let's move it back to our custom folder here. So now we've got 4 custom colors right here. Those are all the custom colors that we've created for our diagram that we can use throughout for easy access. The tool is not just limited to the fill color, but also stroke color and weight. So going back and being a little bit more careful here about my diagram, I noticed that this street here and this street here are not actual freeways. So I actually want them to be major streets. So I want to change both the color and the stroke weight. So what I can do is I can select both of those also, use the eyedropper tool, and roll over or pick one of my major streets, and see it changes both the color and the stroke weight in one click there, or a couple clicks. Let's just trace a few more obvious things here, and I'll zoom all the way out. And for example, we can fill in the ocean here. And what I'm going to do is actually make a new layer. This might be a little bit easier, and put it under the tracing, and call this ocean. All right, make sure I'm on that layer. I'm going to go ahead and lock tracing. And what I can do is use the pen tool again. All right, so the ocean is there, and maybe let's just do something else for the airport here to have a differentiation of something, and we'll just trace this. All right, and I'm going around these green spaces, and you can use the layers and the arrange front to back to be able to obscure one thing behind another and not have to trace around things as well. So this one's kind of infrastructural object. Let's make it something else. How about again, some sort of neutral color, maybe like gray, or another, just kind of a beige or something. Let's make it sort of like a gray. Okay. All right. And then again, we can just add that to our custom colors instead. And also say this blue, if we want to have it as a custom color in this collection, we just put it there. All right. So now let's turn off the background and take a look at what we have so far. All right. So I've not been very careful in my tracing and my choice of things to trace. So, but of course, the choice of features that you trace is very important and should be related to your project and your brand and what you think is important in the vicinity as an influence or force or an attraction that is important to the experience of your project and how it is located within the greater urban context. So what would be one of the final things to do is actually to develop some icons to show where our site is and where the points of interest are. And so we can use some basic markers such as circles or pin drops like that, or other types of flags. And we'll make a new layer for that. And I'll put it right on, I'll make sure that it's on top and lock everything else. So layer 4 will then become, we'll just call this markers. Okay. And this is where this is part of the graphic language that you have to develop on your own for your project. And we can start with some very basic things such as, circle markers or something, and say that this is, let's have another kind of neutral color for the marker. Maybe it's got a stroke, something that kind of stands out, maybe like red here. Maybe the stroke is a little bit fatter. Let's make it a 2-point. And we can add some text to it. T, text tool. And I just click, and I will say, maybe this is A. And we can change the text color as well. If we go up to our swatches, I just have that selected. Go up to swatches, and when you have text selected, the text color is actually the fill color. So let's bring that to the foreground, and let's make that also that same red. Have it match, and we can change the size of it, the character, the font, the weight, etc. with the character palette. And if you go to Window, under Type, Character, and I already have it docked over here. And please do not use Myriad Pro, which is the default. Right, and so with that, I can put this marker on my site, and then we'll end up with a legend as well. So, and if say there's another, I know that at Lincoln and I think it's Colorado over here, might be Broadway, is a great restaurant that I want to call attention to that I think is appropriate for the patrons of my hotel as well. I can just option drag that here. I'll double click and change this to point of attraction B, so on and so forth. Right? And we can also, if we have different types of points of interest. Say now we've got, this park, right? If it's a different type of establishment or different type of space, different type of activity we want to call attention to, we can use coloration to differentiate them. So if I go back to my swatches and let's say We can change the fill color to something else like that, and maybe the stroke to something else as well. Again, I'm just being fairly random with my choices of colors. I think that you should be very deliberate in your choices. And then maybe this is then C. So then what we can do is we can create a new layer, and I'll call this legend. And we can copy some of these items. Let's make sure that those other layers are locked, and so I can just draw a box around these and option drag them over here and say line these up like that and move this one down. I can option drag this one and make this into, whoops, B again, and so I can use the text tool, draw a box, and now I can say this is my Anne Meister Hotel. Slide over. I need to make the box a little bit bigger. All right. Let's put this here. All right. I can option drag that. And B was Bay City's Deli. C is the something park. Let's see what that is. Palisades Park. All right. Whoops. Palisades Park. A little sloppy with creating those markers, so let's kind of zoom in here, and we'll show how to make them a little bit more orderly and with a little bit more rigor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the text here first, and I'm going to make sure that it's centered. And I'm going to use the paragraph palette to do that. So again, under Window, Type, Paragraph, and I'm going to make sure that it's aligned center, because I want that text to be aligned right with the center of the circle. So with this, I'll select the text. I'll zoom in here some more. Select the text and the circle. And now I'm going to use the Transform palette. Go to Window, Transform. Or sorry, the Align palette. Window, Align, and I can align these things horizontal center. I can also align them vertical center. That's a little high, I think, in my opinion. So I'm just going to nudge that down a little bit. All right. Now, once those are in the relative positioning that I want with each other, again, I'll select them both, and I will group them. So Command G on Mac or Control G on Windows. So now when I select, just click on any one of those, they're one thing. Okay. And then what I can do is I can do the same thing for all of these, but this is identical, so I can actually just delete that. Let's option drag that one and just edit. And I'll double click into this group and into the text. Put B, all right, double click out. Okay, and this one as well. Now with the colors here, I'm just gonna go ahead and do the align or the paragraph, make sure it's centered. Open my Align palette. Oops, make sure both of those that are selected that I want to affect. Center those both, center them this way. Again, the C looks a little high, so I'll nudge it down a little bit and group those. So group that. So all three of these markers here, my legend icons, are groups. And if I select all three of those, I can also use the Align palette and say, align them that way, and I can distribute them. You see the second portion of the palette here, distribute objects. I can distribute them by the centers, vertical distribute center, like that. So they're distributed equally now. But something that I didn't do, and you can see that the marker, the icon, and the text are not all aligned and spaced. So what I can do is I can select the icon and its respective text, and also align those to the center, and then group those as well. So that's now a group. Select these, align them in the center, select these. There. Now I've got groups of groups. Oops, I don't think I grouped that one. Group. There we go. I didn't group that one. Group that. And that is a group. Okay, so now I've got groups of groups. Each line is a group, and I can just select those and then distribute those right there. So both the text and the icon, they're all distributed vertically. Then finally, with these legend items, select those, and I'll actually put them on my legend layers, which I didn't do before. I want to keep them separate from the markers on the drawing, because I might want to just be able to grab my entire legend like that very quickly, and not be able to have it isolated from anything else, just to move it around and put it, wherever I want on my diagram. Okay, and then be able to work on all these the things on the diagram, on the map itself independently. All right, so everything's locked. So I've made some very, very arbitrary decisions in this tutorial. I think that one of the obvious things that I have not done that you need to do is make a more judicious decision on the scale and how far in or out and away from from the site you need to zoom. You can also don't limit yourself to using ABC kind of indexes. I think that you should play around with using icons. Now that we've done the pictograms and our diagrams of you should be getting into a little bit of more use to using Illustrator to create some custom graphics. So feel free to use some other type of flag or pin drop kind of an icon for your markers, and even maybe a variety of different ones. All right, so this has been the tutorial to get you started on the 2D Vicinity site diagram. Happy drawing.